All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back, fellow Martians, to another episode of Mixed Martial Arts. My name is Austin Shaper. This is a show where we explore the topics of UAP, UFC, and World War III, today being a UFC episode. And man, am I excited for today because there is so many fights that just got announced. So many. Not only do we have a fight night tonight that looks somewhat decent, but we have so many good fights to talk about that just got announced within the past 2 to 3 days, some of them yesterday. And there's a lot to dive into. On top of that, if any of you guys are gamers, you got the UFC 5 beta that just dropped, and it's not open access to anybody, but I have been watching a lot of gameplay on it. That looks incredible too. Now, a couple housekeeping notes before we dive in. I'm currently in the process of setting up my studio to be able to upgrade the quality of my show. I've got a cool neon sign that says Mixed Martial Arts. I got some cool posters and a little desk set up, but it's been more complicated to set up than I anticipated. So I apologize. I've been absent for the past, 3 or 4 days. I am back, but we're going to stick to this setup just until sometime this coming up week. Maybe by Thursday, I'm going to have the studio set up. So also, real quick, I have decided I'm going to start doing some live hangouts on TikTok because you need 1,000 subscribers to go live on YouTube is what I've heard. So until I hit that number, I'm going to be going live on TikTok on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays, one day each topic. So we're going to start on Tuesday with UAP, then UAP, UFC. Yeah, UAP on so UFO subject phenomenon on Tuesdays. Wednesday is going to be UFC news, and then conversation, and then on Thursday it's going to be World War III geopolitical stuff. So if you guys would like to hop into a chat with me, I'll just be on camera listening to music and talking with whoever gets in there about said subject. So I don't know the exact time yet. I'll get another episode out before that to give you guys the exact times. But if you want to follow me at Mixed Martial Arts on TikTok, I'm going to be doing that now 3 times a week, so that should be fun. All right, diving into the episode. Sorry. It took me a long time, but I had a lot to say. So tonight, I guess we'll start with the fight night. It's Rafael Fiziev and Matus, I can never say his name, Matus Gamrot, Obtuse Gamrot, are fighting in the main event. And then you have in the co-main event, you got Bryce Mitchell and Dan Ige. Now, let's start at the co-main, and then we'll go up to the main. Co-main with Bryce Mitchell and Dan Ige. I'm actually really excited about this fight. I'm not the biggest believer in Bryce Mitchell's game. I haven't seen enough to make a conclusive, decision on what I think his odds are in this fight. He is coming off of that loss with Ila Topuria. It was a pretty brutal loss. He got submitted in, I think, the first or second round, if I'm not mistaken. And Bryce Mitchell is very good, and I actually really like his personality. He just gave an interview with Michael Bisping on his show with Anthony Smith, I think yesterday, and I was listening to some of it. I didn't get through the whole thing, but thought it was really good, thought it was really funny. Seems like a great guy, and he is coming off of a loss, and they're pairing him up with Dan Ige, who is on a 2-fight win streak, the last one being against Nate Landwehr. I think he beat him in a decision, and typically you see the UFC match up somebody who lost with somebody who lost. It's not entirely rare, but it's a little rare to see Dan Ige coming off of 2 victories and then facing Bryce Mitchell in the co-main, who's coming off of a pretty brutal submission loss. Now, Bryce did say after that fight that he had the flu, and it really zapped his strength and zapped his stamina and his endurance, and that he wanted to pull out of the fight, but he wasn't going to do that. So props to him. I do believe him, and you could kind of tell that he seemed to gas out pretty early, even into the first round. Now, was that Topuria doing that to him from his pressure and whatnot, or landing shots, or was it the flu being a factor? I'm going to say if you got the flu, if you guys have ever been pretty sick, imagine getting into a fist fight, imagine the adrenaline dump, and it's got to be awful. If you really have the flu and you're fighting a professional fighter, that's got to be a miserable experience. So if that is true, which I tend to believe him, I don't see why he would lie about that. Props to him for sticking through on that fight. It does suck that he got submitted, but now he gets to bounce back. Now, Dan Ige, in my opinion, is one of the more slept-on fighters at 145. I think he's extremely talented. He was also working with Khabib. I don't know. I think it was Khabib's co-manager or something. I know he was in Khabib's camp for a while when Khabib was at the height of his stardom in the UFC. So Dan Ige, amazing fighter. I think he's had some losses that surprised me a little bit, but he's got some amazing victories. So I'm excited about this fight. If I were to give a prediction, I'm not really in the business of predicting this stuff because as you saw with the Sean Strickland-Israel Adesanya fight, it's just a very unpredictable game. And I don't recommend you bet on these fights unless you've got the money to lose, and it's not going to hurt your wallet if you lose it. If you got money on the line that's going to hurt if you lose it, man, this is a dangerous sport to be getting involved in as far as betting goes, because while the highs can be very high, the lows can be very low. And some guy I believe had bet $250,000, I think, or maybe $225,000 on Israel Adesanya to beat Sean Strickland, and it was for, I think, the payout of like $39,000, and he lost it all because of Sean Strickland. And there's just no predicting that. I mean, some people did predict Sean Strickland to win, but I don't know how many of us predicted it to be a decision or like this dominant decision. We thought if Sean was going to win, he would just clip him. And that's not what happened. It was like pure and utter domination. And to go off on a slight side tangent, Israel Adesanya did finally come out and speak out on his YouTube channel, The Last Stylebender, about the loss. And it was very good. It was like a 22-minute long video. I recommend the interview. It was really good to hear Izzy's mindset. And he's not done. He's not retiring, nothing like that. He's going to be bouncing back. He doesn't know against who. He said his next fight, he wants it to be a fun fight. And he talked about the mindset shift of how ready he was to fight Dricus du Plessis. And then when Dricus could not fight because of the injury, and then, it swapped out to Sean. Then potentially Sean almost got pulled, and it was going to be Jared Cannonier. Then back to Sean Strickland. I think it really messed with Israel's his hunger for the fight, and he said he just didn't feel like he had the venom. He felt like his he actually had an interesting analogy that I've experienced. I don't know if you guys have. Most people probably have, but like if you're in a dream and like if you're punching something and you feel like you have like noodle arms, like your punches couldn't do anything. If you guys ever had like a nightmare, you're defending yourself or whatever. He said that it was like a bad dream when he was in the octagon with Sean Strickland, and that's what it felt like. It felt like he couldn't punch. He had no power, no pop in his punches, and it was like wet noodle arms, and it was like a bad dream. So, that's just to say that, Izzy's coming back, and we knew that, but who's going to be his next opponent? God only knows. That's an interesting one, because when you have someone with the star power of Izzy, it's not like you can put him in a co-main event or something. You got to put him at the top of the pay-per-view. Can't put him on a fight night, and who's he going to fight? Because he's pretty much steamrolled the entire top five in the division. So I don't know who you even face him off with. You do a rematch, but who would you do a rematch with? We don't want to see Rob Whittaker fight him for a third time, especially if there's no belt on the line. So it's an interesting predicament for him. We'll have to wait and see. But as far as Dan Ige and Bryce Mitchell goes, I'm going to go with Dan Ige. I think he gets it done. I think he gets it done by decision. I don't know if you're going to stop Bryce Mitchell if we're seeing a healthy Bryce, but Dan Ige is just well-rounded. He's vicious. He's usually very consistent. And I'd have to say him coming off of this 2-fight win streak against Bryce, losing a pretty bad submission loss, I don't know if Bryce is going to be able to turn it around. We will wait and see. I'm excited for that one. I'm not going to cover the entire card because a lot of it is kind of very low as far as star power goes, but we will cover the main event with Rafael Fiziev and Gamrot. Now, I don't know much about Gamrot's game. I know he's a wrestler. I've only seen him fight maybe once or twice, and I know he's very highly regarded, but I'm not going to pretend to know too much about his career. I know that he subbed Jeremy Stevens and that he lost to Benio Dariush, and his last win was Jalen Turner. So I believe by decision, not 100% sure. So he beat Jalen. He's beat Jeremy Stevens back in the day, and he lost to Benio Dariush. So that's some stiff competition right there, and Jeremy Stevens was probably closer to the end of his career, I would imagine. I didn't check the year that they fought, but I would imagine, Jeremy Stevens is out of the UFC and has been for at least about a year now. So how much can you make of some of those victories? Hard to tell. But fighting Rafael Fiziev, and remember, Fiziev is coming off of this pretty dramatic loss to Justin Gaethje, and we're kind of going to see if he's going to turn around here. And this is a five-round event, being the main event of the fight night. So Fiziev, even though he lost in that Justin Gaethje fight, it did definitely seem like, one, he belongs there. He belongs in the top five. That's without a doubt. If you can put it on, if you can put it on Justin Gaethje like he did, then you definitely belong. And it was a close fight. It was competitive. It's not like he got steamrolled in any regard by Justin Gaethje. It was like very neck and neck. Some people even had Fiziev winning the fight. I did not. I thought Justin definitely pulled it out in the third round, and even got a couple of takedowns. I think one there at the end of the fight and held him down for the end. And so That being said, Fiziev does belong here. He definitely does belong in a main event. And as far as his wrestling defense, I don't know what his defense is. We know that Gaethje took him down, I think, twice, at least once, potentially twice. So hard to tell. Hard to really tell. I don't know enough about Gamrot's game. You guys can let me know if you know more than I do. We'll have to wait and see. But I do believe, I'm a big believer in Fiziev's game. He's a vicious striker. He's nasty. And just because he lost to Justin Gaethje, who is one of the best he could be champion any day of the week. Should he have a fight with the champion, it's totally possible he could become champ. So to be able to put it on Justin Gaethje like that, this dude's got all the potential in the world. And both of these guys have a lot of stock put on them by the UFC community and the other fighters. They're very highly regarded, so I'm excited for this one. The rest of the card, it's kind of dull in my opinion, so I'm not even going to bother covering it. If something happens that's worth mentioning, when I do the recap episode, we'll dive into the post-fight for the card, if there's any other good fights. I'm rewatching it tonight. Don't know if I'll get through the whole main card. Probably not. With some of these weaker fight nights, I get off work at like 10:30 at night, get home at like 11, so I try to watch what I can. But if it's a relatively weak card, it's not a pay-per-view, sometimes I only get through like the last four on the main card, truthfully. So hopefully you guys don't think that makes me casual. I don't think so. I'm just busy, and I do rewatch some of the card in the morning on Sunday morning, especially if I see something in the headlines that like a fight of the night or anything like that. I go back and watch what I missed. So I do my best out here, but I never miss a pay-per-view. All right, so now let's dive into what I was actually excited to make this episode about today, which is all the fights that just got announced. There's a lot. Let's start right here. Tony Ferguson is going to be facing Paddy Pimblett December 16th. Now, this is strange because I was playing UFC 4 on my Xbox yesterday, and there was two fights that I just randomly decided to do, and I feel like I somehow manifested the fights in real life because they are both random fights. The first one being Tony Ferguson and Paddy Pimblett. The second one being Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. And the very next day, both of those fights get scheduled in real life, which I found to be extremely bizarre. So, don't know if I'm manifesting this by playing UFC 4. Who knows? But what are your guys' thoughts on Tony and Paddy? Because I saw a lot of comments that people were like, thought this was the weirdest matchup of all time, and I had to give it a little bit of thought, and I came to the conclusion, yeah, this matchup is very weird. It makes virtually no sense, and the only you gotta think about it like this. Tony Ferguson is coming off of a 6-fight losing streak. 6-fight losing streak, the last one being a submission against Bobby Green in like the last minute of the last round, I believe, in the third round. He's coming off of a lot of bad losses, a lot, and there's who all was in that 6. Oliveira. You got a lot. You got the Gaethje loss, which was kind of like the triggering point for his career, I feel like. And while he didn't get knocked out in that fight did get stopped, and it was brutal. It was brutal. Tony was shaking his head. He clearly had like concussive damage and didn't look right in the head and hasn't really looked right ever since. You've seen brief moments, like in the Bobby Green fight. You had brief moments like Tony did knock down Bobby in the first round. So it's like he is still Tony Ferguson. It's just like the body and the mind aren't connected like they used to be. He's just getting old, man. And I say he's washed up with respect because he's an amazing fighter, and it's kind of a sad the trajectory of his career. He never got to have that face-off with Khabib, never got to get in the octagon with him. Now, do we think that he would have beat Khabib? I think in hindsight, it's kind of crazy to favor him in that fight, but he still did deserve the opportunity, and that opportunity was taken from him, and his career kind of fell apart after that. So while I'm not going to count him out in this fight, it's just a weird one, and it's clearly an attempt by the UFC to suck whatever star power is left in Tony Ferguson and to give it to Paddy Pimblett, who is coming off of a very controversial decision win against Jared Gordon. If you guys remember that one, almost everybody had Jared Gordon winning that fight. I did. It was considered a pretty bad robbery. I thought it was a pretty bad robbery, and this is clearly an attempt by the UFC to suck whatever star power out of Tony before they boot him, before they take him off stage. They want to give that star power to Paddy Pimblett. Paddy, who has not had a fight booked for, a year now? And this is going to be happening December 16th. So how long? Well, it's got to be over a year once he gets into the octagon with Tony that he hasn't fought. And I know he had a foot injury coming off of that Jared Gordon fight, so it's not like he was doing nothing, but thought it was kind of strange that they put him on the sideline for that long. I was actually literally wondering what they're going to do with Patty, and I think that's why I clicked, Tony Ferguson versus Patty on UFC 4 when I was playing it, because I was just like, what are they going to do with Patty? He's just sitting around doing nothing. He was like one of the biggest stars for a brief period of time, and he kind of had like the Chimaev love from the media there for a little bit, and now he's kind of hated by a lot of the community because he... I think he's a good guy. I think he's had some good interviews, and you kind of hear his personality. He seems like a good guy. But on the flip side of that, he was acting a fool after that Jared Gordon fight and acting rather ignorant. He did come out later and say, I do see how people thought that this was a close fight, and, he wanted to rematch Jared to be able to put a stamp on it. Guess UFC didn't see any value in doing that, which is, Jared's not a star by any means. So to rematch him and potentially get him beat again by Jared Gordon, or what? Patty wins, and then what do you have to do? A trilogy for with nothing on the line, with a dude who has no star power? I can see why the UFC didn't go for it, but to face him up with Tony Ferguson, man, that's a weird one. That is a weird one. I don't think it's a good matchup. I think that Patty should definitely win this fight. I'll be very surprised if Tony beats Patty here. Patty's probably going to be bigger. He's going to be stronger. He's going to be faster. He's younger. And he's not coming off of a 6-fight losing streak like Tony Ferguson is. So while you can't count Tony out, you can kind of count Tony out in this one. He's coming off of a 6-fight losing streak, man. It's time for him to retire. I mentioned this a few episodes back whenever that fight with Bobby Green happened. I love Tony Ferguson. He was an amazing fighter, and I just think it's time to hang it up, man. Or at the very least, you got to get him out of fighting against the top 10, top 15, even the top 20. And I don't know where Patty is ranked. He's probably not even ranked in the top 15, but I still think this is kind of not the right matchup for Tony Ferguson. He's going to have all the pressure on the line with the Patty Pimlet fan base coming out, and not much to gain. I shouldn't say not much to gain. If Tony were to pull this out of the hat, I guess it could rebound it, but, there's not really much left in Tony's career, unfortunately. So let's move on to the Wonderboy Shavkat fight. Now, this one is very interesting because Wonderboy, I believe he turned down this fight a few months ago, and something made him take it now. I think what it is, in my opinion, without knowing all the details, it would make sense to me that Wonderboy's probably realizing, hey, I'm getting older. His goal is to become champion. We've heard that time and time again from Wonderboy. He doesn't just want to be like a gatekeeper, and right now that's what he is. It's not an insulting thing to say. He's an amazing gatekeeper. If you beat Wonderboy, you're definitely ready for the top of the division. Now, fighting Shavkat, how much closer could this get him to a title shot? I think very close. If he could take Shavkat Rakhmonov's undefeated record, maybe even a dominant way, say by like a finish, some sort of head kick or something, yeah, I think it could be like 2 fights away from a title. You never know. And I don't remember what fight. Oh, no, okay, so I do know. Wonderboy is coming off of that victory against Kevin Holland. So that's a great victory that he had. It was a very good fight if you guys watched it. If you missed it, I highly recommend you go back and watch it because it was a very competitive fight, but Wonderboy was putting it on Kevin Holland. And I think they both hurt their hands, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin Holland and Wonderboy both. So Wonderboy's been out for a hot minute. This is a good fight. I like this fight. And for people who are like riding the hype train of Shavkat, does he deserve it? Yeah, he's amazing. He's undefeated. But that last fight, was it against Jeff Neal, if I'm not mistaken? He looked beatable, man. He got rocked several times. There were several times where I was like, man, this dude is like kind of sloppy. I mean, he's amazing. Don't get me wrong. He won the fight, but like he's a little sloppy in the pocket. He got clipped quite a few times, and Jeff Neal is I hope it was Jeff Neal. I think it was, but this was a little while ago, so kind of blanking. But he was landing on Shavkat. Shavkat, like I said, got rocked several times. So he's beatable for sure. And somebody on the feet like Wonderboy, I mean, that's a hard matchup. I would imagine Wonderboy's going to come in as the underdog, but that just, I would put money on Wonderboy to be able to win that fight. Here's the question, though. Is Shavkat just going to take Wonderboy to the ground? We know as a kickboxer that Wonderboy is notoriously weak in the takedown defense, and relatively speaking, obviously he's still professional. He's still great. We've seen him be able to stop takedowns a ton of times, but end of the day, that is the weak point in his game, and Shavkat, that is something that he has a strong suit in. So it'll be interesting to see if Shavkat wants to prove a point, stay on the feet with Wonderboy, or if he's going to take the path of least resistance and hold Wonderboy down, just like Wonderboy lost to Gilbert Burns, just like he's lost to a lot of guys. They keep throwing him these wrestlers, and I think the only reason that Wonderboy took this one is because he's probably thinking, like, what am I going to do? Just keep fighting down in the rankings, or am I going to actually go for my last attempt at a title run? I kind of thought that ship had sailed already with his previous losses against like Burns and whatnot, but you pull a victory off against an undefeated Shavkat, I think you're still potentially in title contention. And on the flip side, should Shavkat get past Wonderboy, I'd say he's probably about ready for a title shot, wouldn't you? He's undefeated. Maybe you could give him one more opponent in the like top 3 or something at welterweight, but yeah, that's a good fight, man. That's a good fight. I'm excited about it. Okay, moving on. This is one of the ones I'm the most excited about. Deiveson Figueiredo is making his debut at bantamweight 135 against Rob Font on December 2nd. This is interesting because this was another one where after the loss to Brandon Moreno, Deiveson Figueiredo said he was going to be going up to 135 and that the weight cuts were too brutal for flyweight. And then he just kind of fell off the radar. I feel like maybe there was one fight booking he had that then somehow went away. I can't remember. But for whatever reason, he went off into the darkness for like a long time. And again, I think I did this fight on UFC 4. I'm pretty sure I did. Deiveson Figueiredo for Rob Font for his debut at bantamweight. And again, it gets announced. So I have no idea what's going on. I'm going to start doing like matchups that I just want to see on UFC 4 and just see if that like spawns them into existence in real life. We'll see. But this is a great fight, I think, for him having a debut at 135. I think it's a winnable fight for both guys. Rob Font is amazing, crisp boxing, amazing jab, and he's coming off of that loss to Sandhagen, which was a dominant loss. He got basically wrestle pounded into the ground the entire time. And then what else is he coming off of? He fought recently Cheeto. Cheeto beat the brakes off of him. And so it's possible he's on a 2-fight skid, unless I'm mistaken. He could have had another opponent in between those two. Can't remember off the top of my head. But they're both coming off of losses. They're both, I'm sure that Rob Font might, I don't know if he's bigger. Deiveson Figueiredo, especially, he was huge looking at flyweight for a 125-pounder, huge, relatively speaking. But with him not having that weight cut to suck him dry, he looks so just like he looks like a skeleton before the fights, when he does those weight cuts. Clearly the division was, although he was making weight, he became champ, so clearly he did something right. I think that probably as the older he gets, it makes sense to go up to bantamweight and to be able to be fully hydrated, fully rested, and hopefully not chinny, and so on and so forth. So I think it's a very winnable fight for Figueiredo, and I'm excited to see him up at bantamweight. I think he was the most exciting fighter at flyweight, and to see him into the mix at one of the best divisions in the UFC at bantamweight, this is a good fight, man. I don't know who I would favor. I think maybe Figueiredo. He was such a powerhouse at 125, and I don't think he's going to be outsized. Rob Font's not one of the bigger bantamweights, in my opinion. So we'll have to wait and see. That's a great fight, though. That's December 2nd. We got two last to go over right before I get off of here and go to the gym. We got Colby and Leon finally got scheduled for December. Don't know the date, but it's the final pay-per-view of the year. What took this so long? Neither party was injured. No injury from Colby, no injury from Leon. Everybody speculated Leon's the one who doesn't want this fight. Obviously, Colby wants it. Colby wants to become champ. Leon's got the belt. So math would tell you that it is very obvious that it wasn't Colby holding out for this fight. I'm not the biggest Colby fan in terms of his personality. In terms of a fighter, he is amazing. You got to give that to him. But it's obvious that, Leon was probably the one stalling this fight for whatever reason. And I think, maybe he just doesn't want to give Colby the shot. Maybe he knows that this is a very, very tough fight, because it is. I would imagine Colby is going to be coming in as a slight underdog. Leon coming off of a sharp victory over Kamaru Usman in the trilogy. And Colby having lost to Kamaru Usman twice. I think the first one by stoppage, second one decision. So, and then Colby coming off of a long layoff, whereas Leon has been active, relatively speaking, fought this year at least. So I would think that Leon's going to come out as a slight favorite. Now, that's a good fight to put your money on, because Colby could absolutely win this fight. I do think that those odds would make sense. Colby is a slight underdog, but that fight, that's a good fight, man. I have no idea. I don't think it's going to be boring. Some people are going to think that Colby is boring and just wrestles, but we saw how that turned out with Usman, right? Turned into a stand-up fight. Then again, Usman is a wrestler. They kind of counteracted each other and stayed on the feet, with Leon being obviously a kickboxer, it would only make sense that Colby would take this to the ground. It's the path of least resistance. But no matter what happens, I'm excited for that fight. Finally, it got scheduled. Dude, I was getting worried. That division is a big mess right now. Welterweight, man. They're taking so long to get their fights booked. So luckily, we got some new bookings. Last one on the co-main of the John Jones Stipe card in, I think, November. We got a vacant title fight at light heavyweight with Yuri Prochazka and Alex Pereira. Wow, that's a good one. That's another one that me and my buddy played on UFC 4 because what a good fight that's going to be. And is it fair that it's for the belt that Pereira only fought once at 205 and now he's getting a title shot? He already got a fast title shot, a track to the title shot at middleweight because of the Israel Adesanya rivalry. Was that fair? Yeah, I think it was. Just because we needed fresh meat in the division. Izzy had pretty much steamrolled everybody in the top 5, so it made sense that he got a quick title shot. Now, as far as 205 is a mess right now. You guys know that Yuri became champ over Glover, got injured. Jamal beats Glover for the vacant title, becomes champ. He pulls his ACL out playing basketball, of all things. I mean, I would imagine if you're a freaking UFC fighter, you would be more careful. And, of course, it's fun to play basketball with your buddies, but when you're a professional fighter, man, all it takes is one injury to put you out of your money-making job for a long time. And he ripped that ACL right out, and now he's going to be out for a long time. So now they're doing this vacant fight with Yuri. I'm glad Yuri is bouncing back from that shoulder injury. Is it fair for Pereira to be fighting for the belt? I think it is. He beat Jan Blachowicz, who was the former champ, beat him somewhat dominantly, and the division is a mess right now. So Alex Pereira, again, seems to be in the right place at the right time, and he gets the opportunity. Is this a winnable fight? It is. This is an interesting fight. Pereira is not going to be bigger than Yuri Prochazka, I don't think. Could be wrong because Pereira was big. I mean, he even looked a little bigger than Jan Blachowicz, which I found to be surprising. But this is a good one, man. I think that this adds a lot of potential drama because if he is able to get the belt over Yuri Prochazka, it opens up the door for a potential champ status for Izzy because Izzy's coming off of a knockout victory, but previous to the Sean Strickland loss, he's coming off of a knockout victory over Alex Pereira. Now, while they have fought four times, this would be a UFC trilogy, trilogy in the UFC and MMA related if Izzy was able to go up. Now, could Izzy go up? Let's say in the hypothetical world that Alex Pereira beats Yuri. Can Izzy immediately go up and get that title shot? I doubt it. You got to give that to Jamal Hill. Plus, with Stylebender coming off of a loss, he probably has to get another victory before he could even potentially move up. But you'd never know. He's got the star power. He's got the rivalry with Alex. So if Alex gets past Yuri Prochazka, which is no easy task, but I think they're very equal on the feet, Yuri and Alex Pereira. So this should be a very good one. I am so excited, and thank God they announced these fights because a lot of them we were just like, we have no idea what's going to happen at welterweight for the belt. We have no idea what's going to happen at 205 now that the champ is injured and vacated the belt. And my buddy was saying, I didn't notice this, but apparently on the last pay-per-view, they still had Jamal Hill. They announced him as the champion there at the event. So that's not true, clearly, because they're fighting for the belt, the vacant belt. So interesting times, but a lot of good fights, guys. I'm super excited. I don't know if I'm going to be doing a breakdown of a recap of the fight tomorrow for tonight's card. We'll have to wait and see, but I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. If you guys like this content, I try to do at least maybe 5 episodes a week is usually the goal. I don't always get that through, but I will have the new studio up in the next couple of days, so I'm excited to show you guys that with the neon lights and all that. Got some cool posters. Should be a good time. So go ahead, click subscribe on the channel. I really appreciate it. My goal is to hit 1,000 subscribers so I can start doing my live chats on here. Until then, I'll be doing them on TikTok on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I will be announcing the times and all that. But you can follow that page at Mixed Martial Arts. So click subscribe, free, simple, easy way to help me out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're listening to the audio only on the podcast apps, just click follow, leave me a 5-star review. And lastly, if you'd like to be a part of the conversation with myself and others on a daily basis, we have a little Discord group called Mixed Martial Arts. You can find the link in the description to this video. We talk about UFC news, we talk about geopolitics, we talk about the UFO phenomenon as it develops. We share our experiences, share our opinions, and just kind of build these little this little community, friendships, I guess you could call it, with people all over the place who share interest in the same topic. So maybe you like UFC, but you don't care about aliens, or you like geopolitics and UFC. Whatever it is, we got 3 subgroups in the Mixed Martial Arts group. So just click that link in the description. I think we got like 16, 17 members like that growing right now. So over time, we're going to be watching fights, gaming, doing some live chats where you guys get to talk as well, doing all kinds of fun things as the group goes. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back with another episode in the next couple of days. Take it easy, Martians. Peace out.